Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and we have Umair showing in for Qasim today, and our guest today is Deb. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what you do for a living and where you live.
Sure. Hi, thanks for having me on your podcast today. I'm excited to be here. So I'm Deb Mecca, and what do I do for a living? I've actually just changed, so I have to kind of think about that for a second. All joking aside, I help Shopify apps grow. So I run an agency called Causeway 305. And fun fact, I was the very first independent marketing agency for Shopify apps, started in 2016. So yeah.
Awesome. So how did you go about working with Shopify? Like, what was that process like when you first started?
Yeah, so I actually started in 2014. I was working for a development agency out of Miami. They started in Wales, England, and wanted to break out into the US market. They got an investor, pretty great, smart guy that came from Burger King, some big corporate Hertz, and had a lot of knowledge about scaling. And so he opened up shop here, hired me to become the sales manager. I did a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, and they were developing on, the usual suspect platforms. But one of the founders really loved Shopify, and I had an opportunity to spend some time with him. He actually owns an app now called Zappy. It's a series of apps under the brand Zappy. But he was completely in love with Shopify and got me really excited about it. And I think the thing that made me love Shopify the most was its flexibility to marketers and being able to have a lot of fluidity and take a little bit more control over their destiny. So if they wanted to run flash sales or do things really quickly on Magento, that was quite a haul. But if you wanted to do it on Shopify, you could do it really easily. And so I loved holding them hostage. And also from like a financial standpoint, building on WordPress or building on Magento, you start doing it's like you're doing $50,000 builds. And at the time that was a lot in 2014. And you think, wow, that's really great money. But then you start doing like the time versus, the finance of it. And you're like, we're actually losing money on this thing where we could just churn out, $10,000 to $15,000 Shopify builds and do them really quickly and then move on and like help them continue to grow and scale. And at the time, I was recommending, a handful of Shopify apps. So I spent a lot of time in the App Store, was really getting to understand what was good, what was bad, building up some partnerships. But back then it was definitely the wild, wild west. So none of them had like full-time marketers or partnership people or like none of that stuff was happening. And so every time a store would want to build on Shopify, they were like, well, we want to do this, we want to do that. And I would be like, here's our tech stack, let's go. And then I went to the first Shopify Unite and Toby got up on stage and he said, opportunity is everywhere. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And I came back and there were some problems with the builds. The guys were at the pub and we had launched a store on Shopify and there were fires going off. And I said, you know what? Opportunity is everywhere and I'm not going to play this game. And so I quit, and I had just been out to lunch with a guy that had a Shopify app and he was like, I got this thing, like I own this Facebook marketing agency. I built this app for my customers to be able to do retargeting on Facebook. And I don't know what to do with it. Like, do you want to play with it? And I was like, sure. And that provided like the very first opportunity to start working with apps. And then it just snowballed from there. So yeah, I've been doing it ever since.
That's cool. So as of right now, what does a typical day look like for you?
I work out in the morning. I get up really, really early. I walk my dog, and then I just start working on freelance clients. So right now I have 4. And so I divide up my day based on that. And then on the side, I'm actually building a store on Shopify. So I'm kind of figuring out that whole scenario. I've never been on the merchant side of things. So it's a whole new world, so to speak. So I'm kind of learning a lot as I go with that. So yeah, it's freelance and then figuring out how to become a merchant on Shopify myself.
So, Deb, there's always one question like in mind. So, what is the common myth about your job and your field of expertise that most of the persons are like, okay, if we are going to into Shopify business or we are going to in this specific business, what are the common myths?
That I'm a magician. I think people, because I think my reputation, being around for a really long time, and that they may have like this app that's either super niche or in a very crowded space, and it's just not up to snuff. And you can, there's only so much lipstick that you can put on a pig in order, to help sell it. And so, and I think also, and this happens whether it's, SaaS businesses or product businesses, whatever it is, even like service businesses, where I think people tend to concentrate on like the top of the funnel, like just bring me some installs or just bring me some customers, right? But really the lifetime customer value, that retention is where you make money. It costs 5 times the amount of money to bring in a new customer than to keep them. And so if you don't have a great product that you are keeping up and really building upon it and staying ahead of the competition and making it look modern and all of this stuff, you'll still get installs. You'll still keep your existing customers from 2018 or whatever. But it's going to be really hard to keep people in the door if you're not keeping up to speed with what's going on. Merchants these days are installing several apps at the same time, whether it's them or their agency or their developer or whatever, is involved. So like, may the best man win or best woman win in that type of scenario. And if you're not wowing them out of the gates, you're dead in the water. And so I think that's really what a lot of apps are seeing this year is we rode this beautiful wave during the pandemic where, we kind of rested on our laurels, and for the apps that really didn't like continue to innovate, they're feeling that pain now. And so now they're like, ooh, what do we have to do to kind of, make sure that we have a foot in the door? So,
yeah. So as you were telling, like it's, difficult to get the clients inside the door. So are there any specific parameters on which you get your clients, like these are such products, or on which type of products or stores that you work on specifically?
I don't know that I'm following the question. Can you say that in a different way? Because I only work with Shopify apps. So
yes, in the Shopify, are there any specific store types on the specific products that you work on to grow?
Like in terms of the apps, I guess, like are the apps industry or product specific, or are they,
Yes.
because Shopify, it's like there's so many different types of Shopify sellers. So, or are you working, it's like these apps are general, are helping and serving every single Shopify user.
That makes sense. So, yeah. So it's such a broad question because I work on so many different ones that I don't think that there's a one size fits all. I do have certain parameters that I try to stick within. So I'm not really looking to work with like the drop shipping community as an example, because I think that there's a lot of like turning and burning that goes on there. And to kind of allude to what I was just talking about before with the retention piece, like I want things to be sticky. So if I start working with a new app, the first thing I'm doing is auditing what's happening and really figuring out, like, are we going to have a leaky bucket here? Because if we are, we need to kind of fix the foundation of the house before we start opening the floodgates for new people to come in. So to answer your question, it depends on if it's like a utility app or a have-to-have app, that type of thing. And with utility apps, so like you have different categories, whether it's like upsell or personalization or things along those lines, and you're going to get, the bulk of Shopify's customer base, which is in like home and accessories, and also like fashion, like clothing and things like that. So those are common. You'll see those across the board on a lot of the different apps. But then when you start getting into more niche products, it depends on what it is. So like if you're working specifically with like an analytics solution or something that's going to help optimize like paid traffic or something like that, then you're probably looking at either agency clients that have multiple stores that they need to help kind of manage it. So that relationship is like a third degree, because they're an agency's kind of buffered in between the middle of that. And then most of the time it's companies that are advertising and spending a decent amount of money to drive traffic. So they need to make sure that they're optimizing, getting the most out of it. And then if you have like more of like the have to have apps, those become extremely specific to whatever it is that the app functionality
Okay.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you tell about your business, about like how you are doing. So do you create stores for your clients as well, or do you just take over their stores and you start doing your magic?
Yeah, I just work with Shopify apps. So I don't actually work with merchants directly. So I don't build stores or do anything along those lines. I kind of sit more on the side of like, think of it this way, like I'm a B2B marketer. So I work with SaaS companies that build solutions to help merchants grow their businesses or make their businesses more, work in a more efficient way. So they're touching the merchant, and I'm working directly with the business owner.
Well, I think you mentioned earlier that you're building like your own store, right? Like, so your own brand, is that correct?
Yeah.
So what is that process like for you? I guess it's like, and what kind of products are you going to be selling?
I haven't really announced it publicly yet, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that on this podcast, unfortunately for you, or whatever. But it's a lot of work because I'm not drop shipping. I'm going to be selling my own products, and then I have equipment. So there's a component where I'm going to actually be doing some level of production with the product as well. So there's a lot of things that go into that. So not only am I like trying to figure out how to build a store and figure out Shopify's in and outs and like all of that, but then there's like getting a reseller license in the state of Florida and like, where are my suppliers coming from? Like what products do I need to kind of kickstart this thing? And like, what's a more loftier goal down the road? Like, what is all that going to look like? And then also like, if I am producing it, where am I producing it? And then buying the equipment, that's a huge expense. So lots of things going into that. Yeah.
So in terms of your goals, I know you can't mention what specifically you're selling, but is your goal eventually to have that be like your full-time main job? Is having this store, or I guess like what's your vision for this business?
I think it'll always be a side hustle. I think it'll just be like the thing that I do for fun, that I've sort of now when you've been in this industry, I think, speaking to the masses of anyone who's been on the business side of things, it's like the curiosity killing the cat of like, what is it like on the merchant side? Whether you want to go work for a company and help them run their marketing or operations from a merchant angle, or you want to actually become a merchant. And so like that itch has been, kind of nagging at me for a hot minute. And I finally sort of figured out, okay, if I don't just do it, I'll never know. And I feel like it's never been easier to start a store on Shopify. Like I'm not a developer. I don't have skills. Like I'm still going to need to gain those resources. Like I've tried, but they've made it super easy to get off the ground, and lots of tools and things are made available, even down to like figuring out like sales tax things and vendor things. And there's a lot of things that you don't realize you have to figure out. So Shopify's kind of made it easy. There's a lot of like tooling available within their platform that enables you to navigate those waters as you're learning how to do it. So my brain is exploding every day because I'm just constantly learning new things. And I think I like living like that. I like trying to solve problems and figure out things. And I think that's why I've decided to take this leap of faith. It's like my brain just needs to keep learning. Otherwise, I think that's how people get Alzheimer's, not to like discredit or, get into a touchy subject, but I want to keep my brain always on 12 cylinders so that it's always moving, Yeah.
So Deb, I also want to ask one more question, is that what's the biggest challenge you are facing in your current role right now? Like how you are tackling it?
There are a lot. I mean, okay. So there's a lot of moving parts that are happening, and I've just left a company to where there were multiple apps under one company. And so it made it kind of easy to swiftly move between each thing and sort of divide up my week based on sprints and goals and things like that. Whereas now it's, disparate apps that aren't a part of a collection. And so sort of figuring out, it's like playing chess every day and kind of figuring out, all right, these things are all kind of having to kind of come together each day and each week. And then plus making sure that I'm dedicating time towards this new endeavor. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge right now is dividing and devising a system to where I can make it work the best for me. Sorry, frog in my throat.
Awesome. So in terms of, when you started your career, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew back then that you know now?
Patience. I think patience is a big one because, and I still struggle with this where like I want things done yesterday. And that's not how it always works. It's like there's always these stepping stones that need to happen in order to get to the end goal. And so enjoying the ride along the way. I wish that I had kind of exercised that a lot sooner. And I'm not even saying that I'm perfect at it today. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but or if you have any experience with anything like that.
No, 100%. I guess if somebody wanted to reach out to you and to find, to find you and your business, what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you?
Twitter. I'm available on Twitter at Deb Mecca, Mecca, and you can just DM me there or shout out anything on there. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. I'm sure it's like Deb Mecca or Debbie Mecca or something like that. So yeah, those two places would be the best.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I definitely learned a lot. And yeah, thanks again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, both of you.
Thanks, you too. All
You
right,
too.
bye.
Bye.